Webinar has started. Webinar you guys have all been waiting for. DSP, dude. DSP is powerful. And we have brought in the king of DSP, Sam Lee. So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Mina, Elias. You're going to get a full introduction in a second. Sam Lee is our VP of DSP. Killer. He actually built, if you guys know who Thrasio is, the billion-dollar aggregator, the biggest aggregator. The reason aggregators exist and the reason that companies in the Amazon space are more valuable. He built their entire DSP from zero to where it is today. I think I don't know how many tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions in revenue. 300 brands. He built it. He ran the whole thing. And then we have Brandy, our head of content. Her name says Mina Elias, but it's not. It's actually Brandy Lyman. Cool. So, dude, while people come in here, it's 2:01 Pacific. While people are trickling in, please in the chat, let me know where you guys are calling in from. Let's see where you guys are calling in from. We got attendees coming in. I do not want to start too early, right? Because I know sometimes people will log in 2 minutes, 3 minutes late. Cool. Guatemala, New Jersey, Southern California.
I love to see
Let's go.
I'm in Long
Poland.
Beach.
Oh, dude, we got someone calling from India at 2:30 at night. New Zealand. I love it. Worldwide here, worldwide, of course. We're attracting the best of the best. Everyone who's listening to this webinar is serious about their shit. By the way, guys, DSP is fucking insane. We're gonna go into the back end, the shit that no one ever talks about at DSP, but it is very powerful. There's shit that you could do, you can't do anything else anywhere else. We could literally I've taken advantage of companies like Liquid IV and LMNT that are spending millions of dollars on Facebook ads, driving traffic to their listing, right? So people will go straight to their listing with links, and then I can literally figure out who those people are and go after them on Amazon and off Amazon if I want. They're the first. They were the first where you could do sponsored TV ads. Now you could actually do it directly from Campaign Manager, but the control, I ran a campaign. Amazon paid me to run a campaign for sponsored TV.
Like the JV version.
Exactly. It's you can't, the options for audiences were barely anything versus
it's like DSP with training wheels, right? That's what sponsored display really is. And the same thing equates to the streaming TV options is training wheels, and then DSPs when you're ready to ride a big boy bike.
Yeah, exactly. DSP is is sponsored TV but on steroids, with unleashing the full beast of being able to literally track people and advertise shit. Okay, cool. One final question before we get started. I'm just waiting a couple more minutes to make sure we don't kick off too early, but why are you guys interested in DSP? Let me know in the chat, because as we do this webinar, I want to make sure that I touch on everything that people are interested in. So why did you guys sign up? Why are you here? What are you interested in when it comes to DSP? Raphael said, what does DSP stand for? It stands for demand side platform.
So there are two DSPs that's worth touching on.
Yeah, it's
there's
not
delivery service provider, which means you're essentially the Uber Eats driver of the Amazon world. Demand side platform is the programmatic marketing solution, and it's the platform we use to tap into supply exchanges. We'll go into this, but demand side platform, it's a programmatic marketing tool.
Yeah, basically, let me explain it in a cool way, right? There are people that build websites, right? And they drive traffic to their website. So think of Men's Health magazine. They have 1,000 pages, right? And they have 1 million visitors a month. Why do they do that? They are called supply side, where they are basically creating pages with traffic and then selling it. They're we're supplying it to people who want to advertise. And then demand side platform is basically where the people like us, brands who are in demand of advertising inventory, they go and they buy placements. So I'm oh, Men's Health magazine, you have a page, a blog that is about tattoo cream, right? And that and there's 100,000 people that visit every single month. I'm selling a tattoo moisturizer, whatever,
and I'm buying it.
Exactly. Sam is buying. So that's the difference. Amazon's basically the broker. Amazon is like DSP is like the in-between platform that brings these publishers and publisher sites and brings the sellers and the advertisers that are interested and puts them together. Obviously, they take a cut of everything, but also Amazon has Amazon.com, and that's also ad inventory that it sells.
Exactly. Yeah. And just last piece, because I know we have a decent amount in here, it's that there are a lot of demand side platforms out there, right? Like Google could be considered a demand side
Taboola.
platform. Like, and like, what's the other one? Trade Desk, right? So these are programmatic buying tools, demand side platforms, and you can buy ad real estate. The difference with Amazon's demand side platform is that as opposed to using a billion different data points about browsing behavior that might tell you very inaccurate things about somebody, Amazon uses first party data based on what people actually view and purchase, which tells a lot more about somebody than your browser. Because like we all Google probably some weird shit from time to time. Like it doesn't tell you necessarily who somebody is. What you buy on Amazon largely tells you who somebody is, what they're interested in buying. I will know a lot more about somebody's into fitness if they're buying protein on Amazon than I do about their general browser behavior. So that's what makes Amazon's demand side platform so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And then let me read off some questions real quick. So Bala says to conquer on and off targeted audience and purpose here to scale.
Cover
Love the
that.
language for audience segmentation and better targeting.
We'll cover
Love it.
that.
I'm more interested in understanding concept about how to segment audience on the basis of funnel stages. You're gonna love this, dude.
You're gonna love Mina's slide. Mina loves a
Yeah.
good funnel.
I always get this question because there are contacts that have been burned before with the wrong strategies. Why do I need DSP and when can I do and when can I can do the same thing on as
Yeah,
sponsored display?
I can take this one.
Yeah.
So sponsor
Well,
display. Like,
let's answer it
okay,
after. Not yet, not
okay,
yet. But
fine.
we will answer this because,
Yeah,
but dude, sponsor display is like a Toyota Camry, and DSP is like a
yeah.
Lamborghini. Like in terms of capabilities. Okay. Elena says want to understand whether DSP really generates incremental value. So we'll talk about that because that's a very big thing. And Sam,
Yep.
I would like for you to cover also all of like the shady shit that agencies do, so people can be aware.
100%.
John says, I believe
I
it's
like
a
that.
way,
I
it's a
like she
way.
said 11 plus, not 10 plus. It just feels so specific. Like
Yeah.
10 plus is fine. 11 plus is a little sketchy.
Yeah, there are things that you could do on DSP to make you seem like you're getting a
Yeah,
crazy fucking ROAS, and it's like actually not real.
yeah.
John says, I believe it's a way to increase sales and revenue for my store. Yeah. Targeting competitor demands, increasing awareness. Great. How do we measure incrementality when attribution is so nuanced? We cover that, Marissa. Ankit says Walmart has a DSP as well. That's great to know. So reminder, guys, like I'm gonna get started right now. Chat, whatever you want to do in the chat, cool. You know, you can, but don't ask questions in the chat. Ask the questions in the Q&A. At the end, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open up the Q&A box, and I'm literally gonna go in order. So if your questions aren't in the Q&A, use the Q&A box. Or if the questions are in the Q&A, like I'll probably not see them. Like I can't do the Q&A and the chat. So just chat if you want to say like random stuff or ask if like, hey, like, you know, where can I get these slides or some shit.
Or
Now,
insults.
insults. Yeah. If you want to insult Amazon, you can go ahead and do that. Guys, please like do not disturb, put do not disturb on your phones. Pay attention, no notifications, close Slack, all this shit. Because like I speak fast. Farhad said, is the rerun available? We're not sure yet. So I would pay attention. And yeah, you will get the slide deck at least. So don't worry about like taking notes or taking screenshots of the slide deck. Like it's going to be available to you. Cool. So let's get going. All right. Amazon DSP Masterclass, welcome. You guys are gonna fucking love this. Who are we? So my name is Mina, Elias. If you guys don't know who I am, I own Trivium Group, which is an Amazon marketing agency. We helping brands grow and scale profitably on Amazon, full service. So PPC, DSP, creatives, reviews, SEO, account health, full account management. We also just expanded to TikTok Shop, and we manage about 180 or so brands, like maybe closer to 700 million a year in revenue. We have about 90 employees. Sam, I'll let you do your own introduction.
Yeah, all things DSP. I'm your guy. Been doing it just about as long as you can possibly do it. Built out the team at Thrasio, started a consulting business, helping agencies figure it out. White labeled. It's ultimately where I met Mina. ran an agency, sold an agency, now at Trivium, full-time, all things DSP.
Yeah, Sam is essentially my business partner, and he owns the DSP division. So, what is Amazon DSP? Amazon DSP is Amazon demand side platform. We talked about this a little bit, but it is, again, like a platform where there's publisher sites that are basically websites that have a lot of traffic and people and visibility. And Amazon is a broker in the middle saying we have access to all of these pages, and we have access to audiences. Like, we basically can tell you who purchased this product, who visited this page but didn't purchase this product, etc. So we can sell you audience data, we can sell you placements, and you can advertise on there. Let's talk about the Amazon DSP funnel. So basically, like, when you think about Amazon DSP, think about it as a funnel. So PPC is a little bit different, because PPC, people are coming in, they're typing in a keyword, and so they're typing in electrolyte powder, and you're showing up your product in the search results. Or when they click on like, let's say MMA nutrition, and you're like a competitor, you can advertise on my product and show up in a product detail page. That is how PPC works. With DSP, it's different. DSP is fully audience based, so you can control a few things. You can control where your ad shows, who it shows to, the audience, and what you show them, the creative, right? Those are essentially, there's other nuances Sam will get into, but those are mainly the things you gotta consider. Now, when it comes to building the funnel, right? When you're utilizing DSP, we build it based on the audience. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, at the bottom, we start targeting people who purchased our product but have not repurchased. If it's a consumable, right? If it's like a MMA nutrition, electrolytes, or if it's a skincare brand, we will advertise like, who's everyone who bought MMA nutrition in the last year but has not repurchased in the last 90 days. Oh, and hasn't purchased a competitor's product. So they ran out of electrolytes. They might need more. Let's advertise, right? Let's show our product in front of them. Cross-selling. They bought my electrolyte powder, but they did not buy my electrolyte powder packets, or they did not buy my creatine powder, or whatever, right? And so I'm trying to cross-sell to these people. Retargeting. They viewed my product, but have not purchased it yet, and they haven't purchased from a competitor yet, so they're still in the market. They clearly are interested, and this is the very, very powerful one that we'll get into in a second. Competitor targeting. So they viewed my competitors, but they haven't purchased my competitors, and they have not purchased from me or viewed me. They haven't even viewed me, right? So it's like fresh audience, bringing them into the funnel. Complementary products. So people who, I'm selling electrolyte powder, people who bought ketones, right? Like ketone strips. Those guys are definitely on keto. They need electrolytes. I have a high salt sodium content electrolyte, which is perfect for keto. Let me show them my product. In market, basically, this is like people who are in market for an electrolyte powder based on Amazon's algorithm. And then demographics. There's one that I missed, but it's called contextual. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. Contextual is kind of like Amazon's auto campaign for DSP, correct?
It can be auto or it can be manual. So the best way to look at it is you can touch on any of these, but it's about real-time browsing behavior, not historical purchases. So like in market is if they're browsing a category within the past 30 days. Complementary products, they viewed or purchased this product within the last custom window. Contextual targeting is they are actually on this page. So if you're selling a complementary product or you're targeting against competitor, you can place your ads on those pages in real time versus a historical look back window of when they've purchased or viewed before.
Perfect. Okay, let's keep going. So who is DSP for? So Sam, I'll let you kick this off. I'll pause my share. You share your screen so you can control, or do you want me to control
You
this?
can control. You can control it. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'll just let you go next. Yeah. So a couple things that are worth looking into. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions as far as who Amazon DSP is for and when it's time to launch it. I think that for one, some people try to launch it too early. In other instances, people think that they have to spend some insane minimum, which if you're working with an agency or you're not working managed service Amazon, that's just not the case. So for one, you want to be running PPC and you want it to have scaled it to a certain point. And I keep that vague because it's different for every brand. That being said, if you're not actively using and running PPC and you haven't scaled it to a sufficient point, usually I'd say it's at least 10K a month, but it can depend, then you're not ready for DSP yet. because you need to be driving traffic to your pages. You need sufficient traffic to create the audiences that we run on DSP. So run PPC first. Usually the right time to start running DSP is when you're starting to see attrition in the return that you get in PPC. So let's say you can run 10K a month at a 30% ACOS, and then you run 20K a month and it goes up to 50% ACOS. It might be worth layering in another marketing channel. So it's case by case, and this is something we analyze like per brand, but as a general rule of thumb, you want PPC up and running and relatively successful with it before you test DSP. Number two, at least one product with 100 reviews. This is a little bit of a low benchmark. I've seen a lot of success with brands that are running in the 100, 200 review count, but below that, we don't usually recommend it just because DSPs charge on a CPM basis, cost per mile or cost per 1,000 impressions. So on the PPC side, often if you have a low review count and you're stacked up against competitors, somebody might just not click on your product if the review count's going to be a deal breaker for them, and you won't get charged. On the DSP side, you need to have a draw against your competitors because you need people to be incentivized to go to your pages. And at the end of the day, if you're running against competitors with 2, 3, 4,000 reviews and you have 60, you're not going to get a lot of traffic and you'll pay for it because it's based on impression. So the general benchmark is 100 plus reviews on at least one product. The closer you get to 1,000, the better. Brands looking to scale, pretty self-explanatory. And then the $5,000 plus budget is our general lowest recommendation. We've run a test at like $2,000 to $3,000 in a month, but I would kind of equate that to throwing a $100 bill in a slot machine on the way out of the casino because it's going to be pretty hit or miss. But if you have at least $5,000 to put into it, it's worth the test. In order to access, let's say, Amazon's managed service, usually they require $40,000, $50,000 a month. But if you work at the partner who has a seat, I would say 5,000 is usually the lowest you want to run at.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, guys, this 5,000 number, just think about it this way, right? First of all, the myth is like you need 30,000 or some random. No, you don't need any minimum. I've spent for MMA because I have the seat, right? So I spent basically 6 months learning how to do this. So spending like 1,000, 2,000 a month on MMA nutrition, fucking around. You don't need any minimum, but you have to pay like a fee for someone, whether you hire Sam.
That's a big, yeah.
So that's where, like, okay, let's say that you have a $5,000 budget and we can get a 5x ROAS, 25K, but let's not even call it a 5x ROAS. Let's say call incrementally a 3x ROAS. So that's like 15,000, right? And so let's say Sam costs like 3,000 to run. So you're basically spending 5,000 in budget, 3,000 on Sam, 8,000 to make $15,000. Is that like that? 50% tacos, right? Kind of, is that worth it, right? That's what we're like, because if you spend $10,000 and instead of making 15, you make 30, and then so Sam's only 13, so that's 13 and you make 30, now you have a 33% tacos. That might make a lot more sense. So that's the true cost, is like, can you afford a retainer?
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're spending as much on an agency or a tech partner as you are an ad spend, you're cutting your return in half. And it's not worth it until you can scale to a point that both costs make sense all in.
Perfect. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, beautiful. So the main thing that I guess I want to touch on, and this can be a short slide, but I touched on this a little bit ago, but there are other demand side platforms, right? That they base it on browsing behavior on the internet or Facebook ads, things you like, things that you look at whenever you're logged into your Facebook. Amazon really uses first-party data to tap into what people actually view and purchase on Amazon. And you're only catering to Amazon customers, and what somebody actually looks at and purchases typically tells you a lot more about their buying patterns and if they're going to be in your ideal customer demographic when compared to a general interest someone has. So Amazon's first-party data is incredibly valuable. You can tap into this even if you're not an Amazon seller, but that's a whole other webinar's worth of info. But the first party data that Amazon has based on their customers is really what's the main value here. And then general discoverability. So the reason it's so interesting and why this is unique, and the only, I would say it does have a little bit, there is some overlap with sponsored display, but again, that's kind of a very entry level thing compared to DSP, but ultimately you're not at the mercy of specific search queries at any given time. Right? If somebody's buying protein, you know that they're into fitness and you know that they might be interested in other supplements. Whatever supplement you're selling, if somebody's buying protein and they're buying other supplements, you can say with some relative certainty that this person might be interested in the fitness supplement that you're selling. They might not be actively looking it up, especially if you're in a particular niche that maybe you don't get as much search volume, whatever it might be. You can reach them on or off Amazon, even if they're not directly looking for your product, if they're within the demographic or the interest of the person that you're trying to target. So it's really unique in that way, in that a lot of the times we'll see the brand sales start to taper off if the general category search volume starts to taper off. DSP is not at the mercy of that. So that's part of why I think it's really powerful. We can go to the next one. Cool. So this is inventory, right? So typically the way that we operate is, we mentioned that demand side platforms speak to supply side platforms, so we can buy ad inventory pretty much across the internet. What we usually do is we'll start on Amazon. So we serve ads on Amazon, we see how they do, we identify winners, and then we launch those off Amazon. These are just examples of ad exchanges. Their names aren't really important, but ultimately they allow you to tap into valuable inventory across the internet. So if you're logged into a computer on your Amazon account, or if you're logged into, or if your phone has Amazon and you go to a different website, but you've been browsing specific pages on Amazon, when you go to other websites, go to other apps, if you launch it off Amazon, you can then have your ads eligible to be served on those mobile apps and on those desktop website in random spaces. So it's really powerful. You can really reach people anywhere. Twitch is another really interesting one, depending on the brand. Amazon's been acquiring a lot more companies, and that's considered owned and operated inventory now. But essentially, using Amazon's first party data, we can buy ad space all across the internet.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that from me and Sam's experience, usually saying on Amazon.com for brands, like I have MMA Nutrition, and I see some people here like a pet supplement brand, like most of us are gonna find the majority of our returns on Amazon.com, like the majority of like positive returns on Amazon.com. All the other stuff is not really it. That's just kind of from what we've seen. Now, there is a statistic that came out, and is that when people saw an ad on Prime Video for a brand or for a product, and then saw a sponsored product ad after it, it increased purchase rate by 110%. So there is some of that, like, they're seeing a short ad of you on video, on like Prime TV, Prime Video, sorry, or
Just that
Twitch.
level of familiarity, even if it's subconscious, it helps with
Exactly.
conversion rates and click-through rates a lot. And the way we usually go about it is, Amazon will typically have a higher return because people are actively there to shop. So we find the winners, the top, let's say 20% of targeting that did the best on Amazon, and we'd launch those off Amazon, because the CPMs are way cheaper off Amazon, but you need to know it's going to work on Amazon, and then you test it off. And we usually see that, run 100% of your targeting strategy on, 20% off is kind of the secret recipe for that.
Yeah, and then the caveat here is, we're talking kind of from the sense that we're all Amazon, like brands on Amazon. You don't even have to sell on Amazon. Like American Express spends a lot of money on DSP on and off Amazon. So whenever you see like these bars, when like you're like on different pages on the internet, like you'll see the kind of Amex has like that bar ad, or when you're scrolling through a product detail page, sometimes you'll see Amex has like hey, get 250,000 points if you spend like 30K, whatever, like these offers. So there's a lot of companies, like they're service-based companies utilizing Amazon DSP, not just like brands.
Yep.
So benefits of utilizing Amazon DSP and PPC together.
Yeah, so the important part, I touched on this a little bit when we talked about who was right for Amazon DSP, but ultimately the goal is, let's say at its most basic root, you're driving traffic to your product detail pages, you're driving purchases from your product detail pages, you're building an audience based on your product detail pages, but you don't get all their information in the same way that you do if you sell D2C. DSP is a good way to tap into that. So for one, you're driving, let's say you're spending $10,000 a month to drive traffic to your 2 or 3 pages. DSP is a good way, to tap into the people that went to those pages but did not purchase. That's something a sponsored display can't do. You can retarget, but you can't negate purchasers. Another thing is cross-selling. Essentially, you want to make sure that you're driving enough traffic and high intent traffic to your pages to make it worthwhile to create these audiences. And then DSP is way more successful. So I typically, if a brand's not running PPC outside of the brands that can tap into DSP that aren't selling on Amazon, I will not run DSP for them, because they really need to be used together. And at the end of the day, the goal is to increase profitability for the brand and improve both platforms by running them together.
Agreed, agreed. Sometimes like trying to just run DSP on its own, you're not going to get the return that makes sense. So Amazon purchase funnel, right? There's awareness at the top, consideration, purchase intent, purchase experience, and then people purchasing. Now, I'm gonna jump into my iPad, right? My favorite thing to do is like do shit on the iPad, and I'm gonna explain to you the funnel on Amazon, right? Give me 1 second. Zoom. All right, here we go. Okay, cool. So this is the funnel on Amazon, right? At the top of the funnel, you have impressions, right? And this is just impressions, right? This is people seeing you. This is just people seeing you on Amazon. And a certain number of people are gonna click on your listings. Let's call that clicks or sessions. Okay, unique visitors, right? This is what matters more because it's unique visitors. And then a certain number of these people are gonna turn into sales, right? Obviously, this is based on your click-through rate. This is based on your conversion rate. You can watch my other videos. This is not what this is about. Now, these are your impressions up here, right? Now, what DSP does is like, if you think about the power of DSP, is number one, when you're doing like contextual, right? Or when you're doing competitor targeting, or when you're doing complementary product targeting, right? All that's doing is sending more people to your top of funnel, right? And then we can actually kind of break it up into, we can break it up into like, let's do the funnel, right? And we can break it up into like these different sections in the funnel, right? So this is PPC. And that, like, let's say like you're getting 100 people and it turns into like 30 clicks and it turns into 25 sales, 25% conversion rate, right? With DSP, it can add like 300 people, but maybe that only turns into, 20 clicks because it's not as powerful as PPC. Like these people are looking for electrolyte powder. These people, maybe they were looking for LMNT electrolyte powder or electrolyte supplement, and then you like serve them an ad. And so there's more of them, but they have less of an intent. And, only 15 of them convert, right? And at the end of the day, what we care about is like, how much did we spend here versus how much did we spend here? And then how much did we make? Okay. Now, another thing that DSP does is like, when you look at this funnel, let's go back here, right? It takes this segment. This is people who clicked on you, but they didn't make it down here, and it brings them back up here, right? It keeps bringing these people back, right? Or if you're a consumable product and you converted, it brings people back up here, right? To buy again. Or if you converted, it takes a different product, like we'll just say product B, and it sends people back up here. So as you can see, what it's doing is it's feeding your funnel from the top. It keeps sending people more and more and more to your funnel. So instead of you having 100 from PPC, now you have 400, 500, 600. And this has way more scale because, right? I can not only advertise the people at the bottom and then bring them back up, but I can go get my top competitors, LMNT. They spend $1 million a month, okay, on ads. And all of these people that are showing up in their listing, right, way bigger. Let's say like they have like, 10,000 people. I only have 300, right? I'm taking those people that didn't convert and I'm sending them to my listing, right? So as you can see, DSP has way more scale, but it is definitely less intent than PPC, which will probably convert better, but like there's less people, right? Okay, let's go to screen share. Let's go back. All right, oops, here we go. Oh, damn, I lost it.
Sure, that was an accident, just showing everyone your gold medal.
Where did it go, dude? Is it this one?
It's like, yeah.
Dude, it's
Stop sharing your screen
There we
and
go.
figure it out.
here it is. Okay, cool. All righty. Sam, you're back on, right? So DSP walkthrough. All right.
Because it's 2:30, I'll try to make most of these short. So if you haven't run DSP for Orders are essentially the equivalent of campaigns. This is where you set your intent. This is where you set the products you're running. This is where you set a goal, like return on ad spend, cost per detail, page view, whatever it is. Within an order, there are line items. If you're familiar with PPC or Google Ads, that's the equivalent of like an ad group. Essentially, this is where you figure out your targeting. It's what device type, where are they showing, what audiences, what do we bid, and what products are we showing. And then within those two, audiences, obviously, because that's who are we targeting, whether they custom audiences, in-market audiences, whatever it might be. You set that up at the line item level, and you pair that with a creative. Responsive e-commerce creatives are the baseline, my opinion, the best creatives to use on DSP unless you're running video. And at the line item level, you attach audiences and creatives, you set a bid, you set your ads live. So this is essentially just the hierarchy, top to bottom of the terminology for DSP.
Is this like campaign, ad group, and then like,
exactly,
you know, instead of like keywords, it's like audience
instead of keywords, and then it's creatives. There's, I guess, like if you're running a sponsored brand ad, then yeah, you'd set that up, or like products you're ultimately serving. That's the equivalent.
Perfect. Orders.
Cool. So yes, funnel segment. So at the order level, again, you set, are we targeting top of funnel? Are we targeting mid funnel? If your spend's a little bit lower, you might group everything into one so it can distribute the budget based on what's working. But this is where you set your KPI, plain and simple. Is it return on ad spend? Is it overall reach? Is it cost per detail, page view? And within that, the DSP will optimize to favor the line items that are giving you the best results. So orders where you set your purpose and you enter manually which products you want to track for conversion tracking.
Yeah, and you'll see here, like, you know, this order was loyalty cordyceps. So loyalty is like, remember, people who purchased but did not repurchase, and then cordyceps was the product name.
Yeah. One other thing to note with that is that you can either break out your orders by products or you can group them together. And the reason you might do one or the other is if you want to have intentional control over where your budget goes between products, then you break them out. If you want to say, hey, DSP, whatever product's selling the most based on my KPI, give that the budget, you want to group them together. Cool. So line items, that's where we set up everything else within an order. Desktop versus mobile versus web app, which are kind of grouped together now. Do we want to run video? On versus off Amazon? So this is, you want to get pretty granular with these. I mean, I'm usually a fan of grouping more things together at the order level, but the line item level, you want to be pretty granular because that's how you adjust bids.
Yeah, and it's like, especially when you break it up by device, because like sometimes like desktop will give you a 2x ROAS and mobile will give you a 5x ROAS, or you know, mobile will give you a 2 and web app will give you a 5. Web is like, you know,
and you want to bid accordingly.
Exactly. And so you want to be able to have control. The more granular you are in your line items, the more you can like figure out what's working. So I think when we talk about granularity, I think you're going to jump into this. So one, like, think about it like this. You could do audience 1, placement 1, audience 1, placement 2, audience 1, placement 3, audience 2, placement 1, audience 2, placement 2, and so on. Same with creative. So yeah, here's the audiences.
Yeah, we walked through these a bit, but demographic, highest level, lifestyle. So I guess just to touch on this slightly more, we already went into most of it, but demographic is who somebody is based on gender, age, income, things like that. Lifestyle is what are their typical browsing behaviors? Like, are you a fitness enthusiast, as an example? Versus in market is, are you in market for protein? So that goes slightly more down the funnel. In market is, have I looked at the specific product type in the last 30 days? Lifestyle is, do I habitually buy products in the fitness industry? Contextual is real time. Custom is 90% of what we do outside of contextual, which is we populate the ASINs on our own, set our own look back windows, and create it based on any ASIN we want. And then AMC is an additional layer, which we're not going to go too in depth on right now because we could do a whole webinar on this, but essentially it's an additional data aggregation tool that we can use to create audiences that are not available in the DSP, such as abandoned cart. You can create lookalike audiences. They added a feature that's similar to that lately, but originally it's an AMC specific feature. And then audiences based on ad exposure to, let's say, PPC ads, you can make audiences based on that if you're running AMC.
Perfect.
Cool. So this is pretty simple. Responsive e-commerce ads, I'll just really touch on these. When you're running Amazon DSP, you don't need custom creatives. And I usually advise against them just because there's a lot more of a variable attached to those. And the thing is, you have to realize with DSP that you're targeting Amazon shoppers. It's like the whole benefit in using it is you're tapping into their first party data, meaning you know they're Amazon shoppers. If you're using fully custom creatives without any Amazon branding, you're kind of losing that benefit. Just because if somebody is looking at an Amazon DSP ad, they see the reviews, they see the add to cart button, they know that by clicking on this, they're going to stay on Amazon. If you go with a fully custom creative, people might think that they're going to get directed to a D2C site, which people don't typically want to do. So responsive e-commerce ads, in my opinion, are 99% of the time the way to go. You can add custom images to a responsive e-commerce ad, which works just fine. But the benefit is you pull in your reviews, you pull in the Prime badge, you pull in an add to cart, you pull in any discounts, and you don't need to break your back creating new custom images all the time. And then streaming TV and online video ads, if you have the capabilities to create a good video ad, you can run it. But with that sort of thing, you're only as good as your creative. You can have the best targeting in the world, but if your video is not good, you're not going to get good results.
Yeah, and just a quick recap, right? Again, orders, what's the purpose of your campaign, right? And what product or whatever you're targeting. And then in the line item, this is where you get granular. What is the audience? What is the targeting? What is the creatives? So who am I going after? People who purchased MMA nutrition but haven't repurchased. What am I showing them? Responsive e-commerce. It's like a sponsored display campaign, but not custom creative. And then where am I showing it? On Amazon, off Amazon, desktop, mobile web, mobile app, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. How to determine the right DSP strategy for you?
Yep. So these are a couple things. So one thing that I think people mess up on a lot is they'll come up with a strategy that they think works across every brand, and they'll just roll out a blanket strategy, regardless of what the price point is, what the competitive landscape is. And why this is important is because think about it this way. Let's use retargeting as just a basic example. Let's say you're selling a product that costs $20 and you're selling a product that costs $100. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they get used to setting a certain look back window and they just roll it out across the board. You have to kind of think about how long does it take somebody to make a decision if they want to buy a $20 product? How long does it take somebody to make a decision if they want to buy a $100 product? And you need to use that not only to figure out your general targeting strategy, but your look back windows. So when we run DSP for cheaper products, it's a really small look back window. Like for cheap products, 7 days, 14 days max. If we're running products that are north of $100, people might think about that a little longer. And you can actually access this data through AMC if you have access, so you know what your typical thought process cycle is for customers between when they look and when they buy. And you want to set appropriate look back windows based on that. Next is competitive advantages. I think another mistake that people make a lot is they get excited about the ability to potentially steal market share from the giants in their industry. I've worked with a couple brands that sell hydration packs, and their main thing is I want to take market share from Liquid IV. But it's like, okay, what is your competitive advantage over Liquid IV? We don't want to pay to plaster ads all over Liquid IV's page when their product is just looks better than yours, right? They have 30 times the reviews, they're cheaper. And unless you can convey in a really meaningful way within a small ad that you're better than them in some capacity, it's not worth wasting your money going after them on their own page or targeting their recent purchasers until you can figure out what your competitive advantage is. Go over target people that either are more expensive than you, have fewer reviews than you, or in some capacity, if your branding is better than theirs, it's worth a test, but you need to make sure that you're not just blindly targeting the biggest people in your space, because you're often going to lose and you're going to waste a lot of money. Bid strategy, obviously, this is dependent on things like how low in the funnel are we targeting. Loyalty bid's going to be higher than an awareness bid on Amazon versus off Amazon, and then constantly testing and ideating. But bid strategy is obviously important, and you want to make sure that viewability is taken into consideration because you don't want to be serving invisible ads. Review count, I pretty much already touched on, but cross-selling opportunities, I think, is a really big one. I think that I usually say if you have sub 100 reviews, DSP is not for you. That being said, if you have a flagship product that has 1,000 reviews and you launch a new product, you only have 20, sell that product with 20 reviews to people that have purchased your product with 1,000 reviews. They're not going to be as review sensitive because they're familiar with your brand. They hopefully like your other product. And that's a good way to bolster and start new products based on your already loyal fan base, essentially.
All right, let's talk about some results, guys. So just so you guys see like what's realistic, Innovix brand, Innovix Pharma, one of our supplement brands, 226% growth in revenue, 205% growth in profit after utilizing DSP. UNU, 1.3 million in sales added over the course of 13 months. 88% of that 1 million was first-time purchasers, which is great. Like, it wasn't just like we were tapping into like retargeting. 10.6x lifetime ROAS. So Sam, do you want to touch on like what you did for these brands that caused the success?
Yeah, a couple of things. So these were honestly two very different instances. And some of these, it can kind of tie into some of the questions that were asked earlier. So for Innovix, this is a good example of something where they had a couple products that were incredibly successful, and then they had a number of products that people were less familiar with. However, the general customer fan base between their products was relatively similar. We did a decent amount of cross-selling there. We did very selective competitor targeting for people that we knew we had an advantage over, either previous purchases, views, or real-time targeting. And essentially what we did is, because they didn't have very particular budgets across their products, we just followed what was working. And the other thing to take into consideration is that sometimes your biggest revenue driver isn't always going to be your biggest profit driver, right? So taking margin into consideration was also a big one here, because if you focus more, if you're blindly following revenue and not taking profit into consideration, when you might have an item that's 3 times the margin, if you gave it a little bit more love on the marketing side, your profit's going to skyrocket. That's something to take into consideration when you have a larger catalog. So we did all these things with the Innovix, and we essentially doubled down on the winners and cut the losers. And very quickly we saw some good results, and the PPC results followed. So that was a very holistic strategy. On the UNU side, this was the German market, which is something that I really implore people to look more into, is running DSP ads in Europe. The CPMs are incredibly low. The US market used to be really low. Now they're obviously a little bit higher as more people are tapping into the ad space. But in the EU market, not a lot of people were running DSP. So we were able to get really cheap impressions that were highly visible. And you can see the 17-cent cost per detail page view. That's really nothing. Like, I would equate that to getting a 17-cent PPC charge. And it's incredibly low, and that gives you a lot of at-bats. So we targeted predominantly, there was really no cross-selling loyalty opportunities within this brand. They're in the home goods space, essentially. So we got a lot of at-bats, and we did a lot of contextual targeting. We ran retargeting, of course, but we plastered our ads all over competitive pages. And because the market was not saturated yet, we get a bunch of impressions for cheap. And that causes a cheap cost per detail page view. And then you get a high return just purely based on, if you have that many people that are browsing the category going to your page, you're going to get a good amount of sales. So that's one thing that the European market is something I don't think is tapped into enough yet on the DSP side.
Yeah, if you're selling in the European market and like you're decent, like, yeah, definitely utilize DSP, because honestly, no one is over there.
Yeah.
Cool. Neuro Gum, one of our great successes. If you guys don't know Neuro Gum, it's basically caffeinated gum, caffeinated mints. They have been on Joe Rogan. They've been on Shark Tank. Amazing product. But their goal is to drive a mix of efficient, brand loyal shoppers to repurchase. So basically, like, we wanted to take our Amazon efforts and make them better, plus acquire new customers, which for them, it was very important for them to acquire new customers, right? Like, it's essentially their entire goal is to grow market share. Their investors are very interested in that. So strategies, Sam, I'll let you touch on a little bit of the strategies and kind of the results.
Yeah, I could talk about this for a really long time, but I want to leave time for Q&A. So I'll just give you guys a few examples. So for one, this brand has gum, mints, and then now they have sleep products. Their gum and their mints became really popular, Neuro Gum. Now I think they've rebranded to just be Neuro because they sell multiple products, but gum was their flagship product. So gum did really well out of the gate. They wanted to support mints a little bit more. So cross-selling gum to mints was huge. Contextual targeting was fantastic for them. And then targeting purchases of both and serving the sleep did really well. A couple of unique things we were able to do with this brand that I was excited about this, because this isn't applicable to every brand, but the more we understand your brand story and the marketing that you're doing off Amazon, the better we can formulate ideas like this. The founders of Neuro sent me an article where Joe Rogan lists his top 15 products for like cognitive health. And they were number 1 or 2, but there's 15, right? And we targeted views and purchasers of the other 14 products who were obviously in the same general market as Neuro, but might not have heard of them, excluded purchases, excluded views, went after a demographic or a particular audience segment that we knew was into cognitive function, right? And maybe they watched Joe Rogan, who knows? And we served them ads for Neuro, and they did incredibly well. So that's just an example that you can get incredibly creative with the way that you advertise using DSP. And really nothing's off limits. You can make audiences based on just about any non-Amazon owned ASIN on Amazon. So what else is your target demographic buying? Let's come up with a list. 15 products that Joe Rogan listed, you're one of them. Great. Let's target the other 14 because you know that they fit a particular mold and it does really well. So we saw a lot of success with Neuro. We ran into one of those situations on the bottom funnel where the ROAS honestly just looked too high. And I was like, you guys are doing a ton of off Amazon advertising. I'm not entirely convinced that all of these are incremental. So let's put more money into the mid funnel. Let's get more creative with the way that we target. Let's be willing to take a 6 ROAS instead of a 20, but let's be able to say with definitive certainty that these are real sales. And that's the way that we did it. And sales grew pretty much month over month since then.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So you can see here just some results, guys. 1.4 to 1.8 million. 500K growth at 6x ROAS, 400 new subscribers, 50% increase in detail page view rate, testimonial there. These guys love us. Like, we've done a killer job for them. All right. So before we get into questions, today's offer is, if you guys are interested and ready to scale, with DSP, scan this to get your free consultation with Sam and a half off your first month of DSP. We want people to try this out. Now, obviously, Sam is going to advise you whether this is going to work for you or not, right? We're not going to take on anyone.
Yeah, we'll tell you now.
Yeah,
it's not a fit. I don't like running ads that don't work.
Exactly. We're only going to take on people that this will actually work for. And if it will work for you, then, we'll run the first month half off so you can test it out with a lot less of a risk. And if it works, then, we'll scale. So scan the QR code. Brandy, also, if you can put a link in the chat for everyone, like just wherever this QR code goes as well, that would be great. Like, all right. Let's jump into some Q&A. So guys, if you haven't noticed, I answered 8 questions. I can go through this pretty quickly. Let me see here. Okay, so Peter says, if you start with a partner who has a seat and say 3-4 years, we want to scale and we get our own seat. Okay. Well, first of all, no, you cannot transfer our campaigns to a different seat. But also, it's almost impossible. You're not going to get your own seat. Like, first of all, there are companies that are spending $1 million a month and Amazon doesn't give them their own seat. Why? I don't know.
I have a couple of reasons. I mean, for one, the Amazon needs to know that you know what you're doing, right? Like, even if you're spending a bunch of money, they'll offer you a managed service option. Well, they will run it. But in order to get your own seat, meaning essentially if you have your own seat, you can run as many brands as you want. Amazon doesn't allow access to this easily, just due to the fact that if people start messing around and they get poor performance, it gives the platform a bad name. So they've set roadblocks continuously more aggressive, just to make sure that the people that get Amazon seats and can ultimately serve themselves or clients know what they're doing. So they've just made it more difficult every time.
Okay. Edgar says, do I need to sell on Amazon.com? No, literally anyone can advertise utilizing DSP. Ultimately, it comes down to, like, will it work, right? Do the ads show in some social media posts? I believe they do. I think I've seen some, like, ads on Tinder. Just a screenshot, obviously. I wasn't on Tinder. Where can you learn about Amazon DSP? The best course, Sam has a whole section in the PPC University, so you can get that. Do you recommend doing Amazon DSP for all the for the bestseller or all the products? Start with the bestseller, in my opinion, and then when you see success,
start with the bestseller, the top 2 to 3 max, and then if you're going to run the ones that are not as popular, cross sell first, but start with your best performers.
Can you sell digital products? Yes, you can. You can, like I said, you can sell anything. Like, we actually have someone that's interested in selling travel packages. Innovix, did anything change on the PPC side? Everything was the same on the PPC side, but over time we spent more, right? We spent more on PPC and more on DSP, and that's why we said it's better together. Can you drive
And it's
DSP
why we
ads?
also mentioned profit, right? Because it's easy to increase revenue if you're just blindly increasing ad spend. Like what we want is to increase profit. So 200% revenue increase, 230% profit increase. It's about where you spend those ad dollars, not always just how much, because anybody can spend more money and drive more revenue.
Definitely. And then can you drive DSP ads to Etsy and eBay listings? Yes, you can drive them anywhere. So like they can go to an Amazon listing or they could go literally to any URL you want. Cool. Let's bang through some of these, Sam. Does Amazon DSP only apply for Amazon sellers, vendors, or can you have a Shopify store and use Amazon DSP to drive sales on Shopify?
Yeah, you can drive sales on Shopify. What I
Yeah.
will say is that where it gets a little bit tricky is just the conversion tracking, right? So when you do that, you can tap into Amazon's first party data and you can drive
use a
it through
pixel.
D2C store. You can use a pixel. Now it's called an Amazon audience tag, but it's a pixel. And then you track conversions. They've also integrated, if you have Buy with Prime on your website, that helps to integrate everything a lot more smoothly. So you can track it a lot better than just putting a pixel on a site, tracking Shopify checkouts. But yes, you can do it. It's just a matter of when and where. One thing we've done as well is brands that have a more broad portfolio of products on their website compared to Amazon, we can target those same people and we send them to their website. So long story short, you can, it's just that the tracking can be a little bit trickier.
Solid. Peter says, would love to hear about a recommended mix for DSP, lifestyle versus product versus responsive creatives. For context, pet food company, so lifestyle definitely is something we think should work. I think based on me and Sam's experience,
I used to run all the ads
e-commerce.
for Blue. Yeah, I used to run all the ads for Blue Buffalo Pet Food, and we ran a lot of stuff. So like I can give you some context here. So lifestyle versus in-market versus custom audiences, right? Depending on your budget and how big you are, go custom first, always. Scale up to in-market, scale up to lifestyle. If you're a pet food brand, I don't know how big your brand is. I would say that if you have a competitive advantage and you're well known, you can kill it in the lifestyle and in-market segments. If you're not as well known, you're gonna have a tougher time, and I'd stick to custom audiences because it's a very saturated space. I've done a lot of it in DSP, and for the biggest brands, they kill it in lifestyle and market because people are familiar with them. If your brand's a little bit smaller, stick to custom until it's proven out, then scale up to in-market, then scale up to lifestyle. Just crawl before you walk, before you run.
100%. Okay. Are there certain categories DSP doesn't work for? Great question. For example, accessories, fashion, it's not like a consumable or a clear-cut audience. There's a wide audience and multiple interests. I would say, so Sam, you can give some context, but for me, right away, if you can't build an audience based on like other products, that's a huge red flag. So, well, if you're on Amazon, you can run retargeting, you can run loyalty if it makes sense. If these aren't consumables, then you can't do loyalty. Can you do cross-selling? Can you do retargeting? Retargeting should be able to do. But then can you do competitor targeting? So like, for example, like someone was selling like these dog necklaces and they were very unique and like no one else has them. Like, could we go and find other dog necklaces, like pug necklaces, and then target them? Like, not really. So these are instances where like, if there's no audiences, then it's like very hard to build that funnel. But then Sam, like, what about some other like characteristics of a product? Very expensive, etc.
So expensive, whether retargeting is good for you or not, depends on price point. If you want to talk about fashion, catalog size, and review count, right? The other thing to think about is a lot of the times in the fashion space, depending on the number of ASINs you have, they're not all going to be Prime eligible. That makes a big difference in whether or not you should run DSP, in my opinion. So I wouldn't say there are any categories that definitively don't work. It's just that you need a strategy that's customized to your particular category. And if you have a giant ASIN catalog and they all have 5 reviews, no. If you have a couple key products that you want to focus on, that you want to retarget, and you have an idea of who your competitors are, it can absolutely work.
Perfect. What are your thoughts on contextual? When do you use it? I know some advertisers that apply it to all their orders, and I feel that it undermines your reach.
Yeah, you don't mix it in with targeted audience strategies. That's really simple. You run contextual and you negate purchases, and that's it. You don't run an audience plus contextual targeting, because then somebody has to be in your audience and they have to be on a contextual relevant page. You're not going to reach anyone. So contextual should be its own thing, and audiences outside of audience negations need to be their own thing.
Cool. What is the frequency role in DSP? If a product price is above $100, will it make sense if we set the frequency to more than 10 per day per person? Very good question, actually. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I run it across. So one thing that's worth noting is you want to run frequency caps at the order level versus the line item level. And the reason that's important is because if you set at the line item level and not the order level, somebody can receive your ad, in this instance, 10 times on desktop, 10 times on mobile. If they fall into multiple audiences, they can receive your ad essentially as many line items you have, they can receive all these ads. So set at the order level. That way people don't get exhausted by your brand if they fit into multiple device types and categories. The other thing that's worth mentioning is there is data that shows average frequency impression at the line item level. And if you have AMC, it can show you the average frequency that's needed to convert. If you have AMC, look into that data. What's the average amount of time somebody needs to see an ad before they buy it? Use that. If you don't have AMC, look at what you're like. You can set it to 10 times a day, but then if you look at the average frequency on any given line item, it's like 2 or 3, then you're fine. But if your average frequency is really high, you have a problem. So I'd say there's no harm in testing it. Just make sure to look at the data because it's all there if you know where to look.
Perfect. In which social media apps, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, do you know what like social platforms?
So yeah, that's honestly a tricky one. I know that Pinterest now ads can show up. From my experience, so I don't think like Instagram within the feed or within the stories,
I don't think
DSP
so.
ads aren't going to show up there. Predominantly, if you run like mobile app DSP off Amazon, the majority of where DSP ads are going to show is within other apps. They essentially show up as a pop-up. So that's why our viewability rate within apps is usually like 99 to 100% because it covers the screen. They're not going to be like in Pinterest, they can. Facebook, Instagram, it's not going to show up on people's feed or in stories.
Cool. Thank you for the webinar. What do you think and how do you explain view and clicks attribution to your clients? I have a click ROAS sometimes 8 to 10 lower than this view and clicks. So I want to answer this pretty quickly. The biggest thing is you have to look at this, like the KPIs in terms of when you're looking at like anything above retargeting, focus on detail page view rate, focus on click-through rate, show that you are getting traffic to the listings, and then besides that, I would focus on like looking at incrementality. So before I was spending $1,000 on PPC, making $20,000 in sales. After I'm spending 1,000 PPC, 1,000 DSP, making 26,000 in sales. That $1,000 extra DSP costs $6,000 extra total sales. That is the best way to actually like track things. It's gonna be incredibly hard to like if you're trying to nail down like an exact like ROAS or whatever. So when you're optimizing campaigns, you're optimizing them based on like the inside of the campaign inside of the campaign metrics, right? But when you're looking at like actual results, look at incrementality. Can you drive traffic from DSP to your main website, not Amazon? Yes, you can. You can drive it to any URL. What kind of ROAS is appropriate to see with DSP? What balance of marketing, retargeting, prospecting? So Sam, what is the percentage of your ad spend that should go to bottom of funnel, like retargeting loyalty versus top of funnel? Is it like 20% bottom, 80% top? And then what ROAS do you expect to see for both?
Yeah, it depends on the brand at the end of the day. Like I usually recommend starting at 50-50, seeing what percentages are coming new to brand. So to answer a couple of your questions, a couple of things, look at percent of purchases coming new to brand. There's also something to track within the DSP that's branded searches. So if you feel like you're not seeing enough click attribution, you're seeing view attribution, look at how many DSP ads then it ultimately led to a branded search. It's an important thing to look at. But ultimately, depends on the brand's goals. If we're heavily efficiency focused, then we'll go, 60-40 in favor of bottom funnel. If we're mainly focused on new customer acquisition, 80-20 in favor of mid to top funnel. So it just depends on your goals. Like you can run it however you want. It's just if your main concern is driving new to brand business and having it be incremental, heavily in favor of mid funnel I do a little upper funnel, but not without a huge budget. If you really just want to drive efficiency and prove it out before you expand, then you go heavier bottom funnel. So there's no clear answer to that, but, and it also category depends. But I usually say that if you're running an efficient DSP campaign, looking at a mix of mid to bottom funnel, target a 4 to 7 ROAS. Anything like more than that, and I would say you want to invest more in the mid to upper funnel. Anything below that, it's probably not doing a great job. But it depends on your budget and your targeting strategy.
All right, Valeria, I'll bang out these last two. Valeria, which part of the funnel is the most profitable? Obviously the bottom, right? Loyalty and retargeting. Furkan said, if DSP is mostly effective on Amazon, why to run DSP with more wide audiences rather than targeting search terms in PPC? Can you please specify DSP placement on Amazon? Okay, so DSP placement on Amazon is very similar to sponsored display placement. You'll see it in the buy box, in the product detail page in the middle, or
Everywhere on Amazon
sides.
except for brand pages. It's
Yes,
eligible,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Now,
Brand
if
store.
if DSP is mostly effective on Amazon, why to run DSP with more wide audiences? Listen, it's a strategy, and whatever works, right? So it's not like don't think there's a rule, right? It's not a DSP works amazing for this and like it's a law. No, it's like, dude, this is advertising, right? So we combine PPC with DSP because, for example, yeah, PPC, someone types in electrolyte powder, they are gonna see 5 electrolyte powder results, click on one and buy. Versus, right, like what if you're already in position 4, right? Like what are you gonna do? You can't do shit, right? You're already showing up in the top of the search. But what about the hundreds of thousands of people that make it to LMNT and Liquid IV's product detail pages, but never go to a search result? How do you hit those people, right? That's where DSP comes in. How do you retarget? That's where DSP. So it's like, why use DSP versus PPC? Like, it's a tool, and each tool has abilities, and you use it to the best of its abilities, and nothing is the same. Like for Neuro Gum, one thing works, Innovix a different thing works, you a third thing works. It's all different.
Test
Cool.
a lot, cut your losses, double down your winners. That's it.
All righty. Dude, we got to wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for coming. If you want to book a consultation
I
with
see
Sam,
questions we didn't answer, click the link, or I'll send my email in here as well. Like any of those questions that we didn't have time to answer, click
yeah.
the link, grab 30 with me, send me an email. Yeah.
All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and Trivium brings the heat when it comes to like value and amazing masterclasses. So hopefully you guys love this, and we will see you guys in the next webinar. Brandy, when's the next webinar? And what is it? Do
So
you
I don't
remember?
think we have a set date, but it's going to be with Amazon themselves.
Oh shit. We have a webinar with Amazon. That's true. So we're doing an Amazon PPC webinar
Thus
with
Jeff.
Amazon. Well, yeah, not Jeff Bezos. We couldn't get him. He was a
Just
little bit
kidding.
busy. He was on his super yacht. But like someone from the Amazon ads team is joining us. We'll keep that as a mystery. Also, I'm doing a webinar with the Amazon ships and product packaging team. If you guys don't know the ships and product packaging, it is an insane, fucking amazing new service where basically instead of getting like the product in this Amazon ugly ass box, you can get it in your own box. So you can put it in your own box, brand it, put like QR codes and links to go to your own website, or go to a page where you can basically collect people's information, and Amazon won't penalize
The
you.
live feature, right? That's not something you're supposed to keep a secret.
Yeah, that's not a secret.
Okay,
That
just
is,
to make sure. I'm like, don't get in
that
trouble.
information can be found on the Amazon ships and product packaging page. So we have those 2 webinars coming up, and then we're gonna probably do another Q&A, like ask me anything, Amazon PPC. So if you guys want more shit, ask, like say, hey Mina, I'd love this masterclass, this webinar, whatever. I think we should probably do one about AMC, because AMC is pretty powerful. But all right, homies, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Peace.